Hey, what's up? Welcome back, folks. We are coming at you with another Musky podcast with special guest Mark Kornosky. We are going to talk some Lake St. Clair. Really looking forward to this. Always look forward to chatting with Mark and even more so fishing with Mark. Wish that was going to happen today. Unfortunately not. I see Mark, you're on there. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me on, man. Miss you guys. It's been a while.
I know. Been a
Robbie, what's
year for
happening?
me. Not much. Yeah, just 12 inches of snow this week. It's awesome. The never-ending winter of
Another
snow.
12.
Oh yeah, just I'm so sick of shoveling the deck.
I see bare grass out when I look out the window right now,
Yeah,
Robbie.
not so much. Not so much in this neck of the woods.
Well,
But
before we jump into
yeah.
it here, just a little quick public service announcement. Just wanted to mention the Minnesota Muskie Expo that is coming up this coming weekend, which is March 10th, 11th, 12th, and that's at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds. Looking forward to seeing all you guys out there at the show. I'll have some, of course, Lee lures will be available there. Got the Ninja, of course. I'll have finally got some 10-inch Death Paws minnows. Look at that pike pattern, pretty sick. Got those. Even got a few 13-inch Death Paws minnows. So some cool, fun stuff like that. Of course, Chaos will be out there, and I think actually TNA. TNA is
Yeah.
going to be
Yep.
there. All right, and actually, by the time this video comes out, I probably have picked up my new boat, folks. Looking forward big time. As you can see, we have hooked up with Vexus and Mercury and Angler's Edge Marine down in Loves Park, Illinois. So got some boat rigging to do before heading to Florida here. So pretty excited about that. Mark, I'm gonna have to bring my rig out to St. Clair maybe.
Oh, I can't wait, man. I want to test that out, man. That's built by the guys that built the best boat there is.
So that'll be fun. But at any rate, enough about that. Let's talk some Lake St. Clair Muskies with Mark here. Mark, why don't we just kind of begin, kind of tell your story. You're obviously a resident out there and have been since the get-go. Let's hear how you got started
Okay.
in the Musky Guide or Musky fishing. We could even start
Yeah,
the
it goes back
beginning there.
it goes back way before guiding. Family's always been into fishing. I've born and raised in St. Clair Shores here, where you guys come. So fishing's always been a bike ride away. Parents have always had boats, families always had boats and fishing. Walleye was really as a kid, we always walleye fished, and the walleye fishing was phenomenal. And then we had a time probably when I was, around the 10, 12-year age. Walleye fishing was tough, but you could catch more muskie than you could walleye, if that makes any
No
sense.
kidding.
Yeah, with the way the
That's wild.
water and stuff. But yeah, muskie got pretty good. Ducci's grandpa, which was my cousin, um, he was a charter captain back then, did a lot of tournaments. So, with my dad and my uncles, we always fished together at least, 3, 4 times a year with him. And he was always the muskie guy. And I remember, God, I was probably 13 or 14 when I caught my first muskie and some good sized pike. And man, I was hooked,
It
like
was
everybody
teeth.
else, the teeth and the size and then growing up, first made it as a time or two here when we can, when you're off for summer vacation. They didn't have autopilots back then. So, you know, teenagers were usually good to get yelled at and steer a big boat, keep the
Yep.
cleaner boat going and stuff.
Getting the
But we learned,
weeds off.
oh God, yeah.
I mean,
Getting yelled at for not cleaning the weeds or tangling stuff
yeah,
up. It was always our fault as a kid. So,
that's awesome.
but then as college and, an adult took a little bit of a break, but still fished with family. And, then as a young adult, I got my first real rig. And then I think I was probably in my young mid 20s or whatever when I got my first 25-foot boat and, started putting the plan together yourself. Because when you're fishing with somebody, I mean, you're adding to it. But when you do it
Yeah.
yourself, there's a learning curve and, your own setups and obtaining your own lures and stuff like that. But, the muskie, I couldn't get enough of it, and man, we were fishing back then. Times were cheap, gas was cheap, man. We were fishing 4 or 5 days a week, the boat's close and in the marinas, and
Yep.
and we just fished and got really just kind of, doing the trolling thing because casting really hadn't even started out here. And
So
well,
wild.
it's a crazy thing. I mean, when I think about when Mike was just a teenager and he was casting, and some of the other guys that were like the original muskie casters, I laughed at. I'm like, why would you want to go cast when we can go troll and catch 10 of these things, in a day, or 8 hours or whatever? And it was just a different time, a different illness, and but I stuck with the trolling for a few more years, did some tournaments, started guiding, doing that thing, and got real successful, caught a lot of big fish and won some tournaments, and, held some records with some big fish here and there, had some good years, and, then some bad years, and watched
Let's hear a little more about that. Some of these big fish and records and whatnot.
Trying to think.
Well, you'll have to dig up some pictures for us, because those are some cool old school.
The one, if you could, I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah, we can see that.
That one was, unfortunately, I hate back then, I did things a little
Harvest.
bit. Yeah, we harvest fish, we ran fish. That's a whole nother topic, what still happens today, but
right.
I don't run fish. I mean, I'm 100% for a long time now. I've been catch and release, but that fish, 2007, we were fishing one of the big tournaments, or actually a couple of tournaments on the lake. We were already in a place with like a 33 pounder, 34 pounder maybe. And, we hit that one about 8 o'clock. And that one came in dead at 42 pounds because the scales had already closed on us, and it was just, it's under 42. So
what was the dimensions then?
53 3/4 by 26.
26. Okay.
And that was an August fish. So
that's pretty impressive. Holy crap.
Yeah. When that one hit the floor for the first time, I mean, I had caught, that was my first 40 pounder. And, I mean, you see, 30 pounders were big, 35 pounders were really a good fish back then. But when that one hit the floor, good God,
it's a total different animal.
Knew that was something special.
Like, whoa, yeah, because we were fishing a length tournament and a weight tournament, so we had to go to two different locations at the time. But the thing was long and heavy, and like, man, I don't even know where we're running it. We're running it somewhere, but so that one held for a while, as king of the lake status for a while, I think till 10 or 11 sometime, and then there was a few fish bumped in there, but yeah. And then that same tournament, a few years later, we got 55 7/8 that came in at 39, just under 40 pounds. That was a winner, for us on that tournament. Same tournament that's held
that's
here.
Awesome.
Yeah,
those
were
are good prices on those tournaments back then, right? It was pretty worth doing, right?
Yeah, they were cost effective. I mean, you could get into these tournaments for $400 plus your gas and your beer and stuff, and you'd win 18, 20, 25 cash in an envelope.
Absolutely. I mean, it's
nice.
not the worst
not
thing.
A bad weekend.
No.
So
how many boats would be in them?
50, 45, 50 boats. I think,
wow, not that many.
I mean, I'm trying to think. Might even have been more. I mean, there was a couple back in the big trolling tournaments. There was one always the third week of July. They called Hot Rod or Musky Bash. That one had a lot of boats for a lot of. That was like the main one, and then there was another one on the Canadian side back then out of Bell River. That those were really your only two, and they were pretty good. The Canadian one never really was as big as the other one, but they packed some boats in it back then.
Would you guys be like on top of each other trolling? Was it kind of
some spots? Yeah, you'd get out mid lake and
certain color or something.
Yeah, if you had a color break or if you were working, back then electronics weren't as good as they were on our bigger boats. I mean, nowadays your bigger boat, you can put side imaging and stuff like that. But back then you just had a 2D, so if you seen some bait or you caught some fish and you would kind of, really, get dizzy, you'd stay tight in an area, or you'd work a triangle from like the weather buoy to South Channel. You stuck in an area, especially if you were catching fish and they were getting bigger. And back then the middle of the lake was kind of the go-to spot for the big fish. You had to get away from catching 15 of them that day, or some of the numbers that guys would get used to. You know what I mean? That's crazy back then.
Right.
I mean, when we did these tournaments, you'd start fishing at 6 in the morning, and they would go till about 10 p.m. And on day one, I mean, it was tough. You'd catch 15 to 25 fish numbers wise back in those days. I mean, the lake
Yeah.
was really full of fish.
Sure.
But you had to ride it out. Some guys would, do the deep Canadian, the Thames, Stony, those places still caught fish, but traditionally back then, those big girls came from the middle.
Sure.
Somewhere in the middle.
The middle. I like that place.
I like it. Yeah, it was good to us last year. It was kind of with the water coming back down. It's coming back. Last year was a good year, but going back into history, so we did some pretty good things. Tournament, started guiding. I mean, I think I'm at 21 years this year, 22 somewhere in there. We trolled a lot, had the big boat. Chrissy and I bought a farmhouse. God, it was a while back, but we took a couple years off. The big boat, we sold the big boat, got into some property in a house. Took a couple years off because I was really building and, just really remodeling this house. So I had to take a couple years, but it was a great opportunity. I spent that whole summer when I could fish casting. And that's when I finally made the decision. I was kind of burned out the trolling. I still love it. And its supplements, I still do trolling trips now, but I don't do the big boat. We troll on the Ranger and we make do with, 8 rods instead of 12 and, and we get a little more beat up, but, so that's when I really made the transition. And I think, God, it wasn't too far after that when I met you guys, so,
Sure. 2017, 2018, I think that was.
I think maybe I started really, I mean, I'd always casted with Mike and, done stuff in the fall, but that's a couple of years before that, I really, just said, man, I want to figure this casting thing out. This is fun. This is a new high, this is something that, when that fish hits and you set the hook and, and it's such a challenge to, I look back at some of the big fish I've caught and some of the numbers I've caught. I mean, there was times trolling. If we didn't catch 100 fish by 4th of July and you asked me how my season's going, I'm like, man, I'm having a bad year. I'm off slow start. But, now,
3 weeks of fishing.
I can remember those little fish and the crazy fish and the acrobatic fish and those things because they mean so much more, because it's a challenge. It's truly, one hook set or a lure pop out, goes from the best day of your life to man, I made one mistake.
Right
just a totally different program and mindset, and be able to see that fish come to the boat, and it just has new rewards all the way around, from going from trolling to the casting thing.
And fishing with Mike and watching and Chris Mahan and some of those guys that I really fished with, and back then when the lake was a little bit different, watching them do what they did, with the figure 8 and the boat side work and stuff like that, you just, oh God,
that's cool.
And Mike, you guys have fished with him enough. Watching him in a figure 8, he is absolutely just Houdini. That guy, I mean, you too, Robbie. You are one of the ones too, man. I've seen you do some.
I've snuck some. I've snuck some in.
Few things here and there, but so it's just you get the bug, and man, I still right now I still have, it's awesome to be charged up. Just turned 50, and I can't wait to get into musky right now. So.
Yeah, for sure. What about the VHS? That might be kind of an interesting quick topic.
Yeah. The lake definitely has changed, in a lot of ways over the years. In my time, I want to say it was like 2005-ish, I think, is when we had the first big one. We had, a winter kind of like we got right now. It wasn't much of a winter. And then I remember that year walleye jigging on the Detroit River. Literally, the internet and stuff wasn't as big as it is now, with the Facebook and social media and stuff like that. But I remember that year, all the guys on the Detroit River jigging and just watching these beautiful muskies dead, just floating up. You could not go jigging and not see one that was that many. You know what I mean? If you went out walleye fishing for 4 hours and only seen one, you did good. And a lot of times, and it wasn't the little itty bitty fish, it wasn't the monsters, it was a lot of the bread and butter fish that
like to see,
in pre-VHS, honestly, we were spoiled so bad that if we didn't catch 8 or 10 fish on an 8-hour day, 1 an hour, you were kind of having a bad day. I remember apologizing for trips, to my clients that, we had 5 fish, like, sorry guys, it was slow, and today it's just
Like you're
not that
salmon
way,
fishing or something.
Right.
you know, but it's ironic how it's changed Lake St. Clair. You take clients that have fished, they come out with 5 or 6 guys on a big boat and they troll and they're used to each getting a shot or two at the rod versus today we get a different quality of fish, but we don't, you still get a spike here and there where you get that right day and you get some good numbers. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
It's still great fishing, but not like those days. I mean, once you found a pack of hungry fish, there were so many, I think there was so many fish competing for bait that you could just literally, work them over
Drive.
for a lot longer than you can today where weed edges, bait, the fade moon, stuff really you got to pay attention to a
little
lot
more
more things,
specific.
to dial it in. But yeah, after that year, I think it was 2006, we were lucky if we were catching 2 to 3 fish an 8 to 10 hour trip. I remember a lot of my 8-hour
Wow.
trips, we'd keep them out to 10 hours because we didn't have, we had 1 fish or 2 fish. And it wasn't, and going from the season before where it was just always used to hearing clickers scream and fish one after another. It was
Jeez.
really, you noticed that, wow. But then the following year, I think it was 7 when we got that fish, we noticed all of a sudden these bigger fish showed up. And
Sure.
the caliber, the bellies, just the build of that fish was different. Because back then, I mean, you caught a 30-pound fish, you did something. I mean, it was, we didn't even really care back then, like the 50, because you really weren't catching that many. I mean, you were really, length here wasn't a big thing. It was always a weight thing here.
Sure.
So you were, trying to weigh them. And that was 26 or 29. And, a lot of guys always ask me how many 50s have I caught. And honestly, I don't know because we caught a lot of nice fish and big fish, but
weighing them more meant
weighing them more
sure.
than we did, because that was, some of the clubs here, that was a thing, it still is for one club, and that's their premise, they care more about weight, which, hopefully that'll change one day. Maybe they'll,
yeah.
It probably took a 50-inch class fish to generally weigh 30 pounds, I gotta believe.
Yeah, pretty close to it. I'm thinking 48 or bigger, a lot of times, to get into that 30-pound fish, but they didn't have that like today, they just don't have that, that sexy build to them that they do, that you get today, that we get out of here, the bigger heads and,
Yeah, I mean, you can really see it in the pictures and photographs and old videos. I mean, you can see the difference between the fish back pre VHS, where the fish were definitely considerably thinner, but obviously the numbers were considerably higher. And then afterwards, like you said, they just filled out, and it just, it was almost like Mother Nature was just really taking care of itself.
Absolutely.
Like it usually does.
Everything is cyclical to some point, water levels and, and like you said, Mother Nature has a way, she knows how to balance it out, and, we do it long enough, we'll ride some of the waves, and it did. The fishing, from back 7, it ramped up again. It built back, it came back stronger, and we got into some really good numbers again, and the last, God, we've had high water now. We don't now, but we had, up until this past season, I think it was about 3 years, we had some high water, which higher than I've seen in a long time. And, that changed things a little bit too. And last year with it coming back down, for me anyway, I know some of the guys I've talked with, things weren't maybe firing the same for them, but for us,
You had a heck of a season.
Oh yeah.
Best season since I switched over from a big boat.
Sure.
Musky. I think we had 27 over 50, with 53 and a quarter being our biggest, captain.
And working a full-time job.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and we still managed. I think we ended up 70 some trips last year between walleye and musky. So yeah, there wasn't, I was glad when Lee was we were able to get Lee and Barba. I was bummed you didn't make it, but I was glad the way that worked out with Derek. He was so excited to fish with you guys and meet Lee, and I'm glad that worked out because just this calendar was just so full.
Right. No. There's only so much time in the year to make money, especially musky fishing.
Sure.
So, got to book it up.
But,
I would say pretty much every time we've come out there, basically, there's been a shot at something just
Insane.
very cool happening. Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing results.
I think about that one trip we had. I mean, we were deep in the middle. I mean, how many big fish did we see that day? I mean, the water was, if that water would have been a little bit more stained up than we were fighting, but we couldn't find, but I think we got that double as it got start to lose that sun.
Yeah.
But I mean, how many big fish,
Just,
and I mean, God,
stupid.
That day was, and it was just so hot. That day was
miserable.
It was miserable. But I think Lee, you got that topwater fish that day too.
Right away. Yep.
Yeah.
Right
in the morning.
Man, here we go.
And we're like, wow, this is gonna be insane. We're just gonna crush them midday on topwater, and not so much. Yeah. Were you able to do any topwater fishing this year, Mark?
I did a little bit of things here and there. When I'm usually the fourth guy, I mean, I'll try to. When I'm not the guy in the boat. A lot of times I put the clients, get them on what's been patterned the best, and then I kind of throw off a little bit or what I think to try to, and depending on the caliber of who's fishing with me. I mean, my clientele for the most part, and I think a lot to you guys, is generally the more entry level, the newer guy, and then a lot of guys, I think from some of the videos and stuff, they always tell me they feel real comfortable. We're fun. Us, we laugh and and try to get the pressure away from the fishing. We want the technique and right things to do, but when you're not just focused on that, waiting for that bump and and that hit or something, that's when the good stuff happens. And you take that, so
gotta have fun. You gotta have fun.
Early on in fishing, when I got caught up in some of the club and the tournament stuff, I really get just so focused and kind of take the fun away. And one of my good buddies said that to me. He said, Mark, he said, you're really not having fun with this. You're
sure.
I can see it, I can see it in your body, I can see it in your face, and how you talk. And what I mean? I really took that to heart. And then anytime I talk to him or see a post on Facebook, we always giggle because I'm like, and it's true. If fishing is supposed to be fun, if you're doing it and you're upset and you're kicking tackle boxes and you're not having fun, man, it's the wrong reason, because that's the release. For me, it is. When I'm not thinking about work and blueprints and drawings and machinery, quality issues, I'm thinking about fishing and having fun and good stuff.
And the people.
Absolutely, and I mean, and that's the other thing, watching the expressions on, and I know because it wasn't just that long ago that was me. I mean, I'm not one of the guys casting on the lake that's been doing it since it started. I'm not that guy. I mean, I was trolling, caught muskie, but so I can relate. When you miss that figure eight or you're looking away for a second and the guy, hey, there's a fish there, and I don't get mad, but I've learned some things to try to make that not happen, and and work with them, and we all start from somewhere, and that's the thing. We all see it, we experience it, we want to do it, but we all weren't great casters and we weren't great fishermen, and we all learned from somewhere. So we got to start at the beginning, and have fun.
Yep, keep the pressure off, keep it fun. No, that's a great way to look at it. Yeah, no doubt. That's cool.
So what about, I'm sure there's guys out there waiting to hear some good technical stuff and some technique and some patterns of the lake. Why don't you just give us kind of a brief run through of maybe a typical season and what you like to do at what time of year?
Well, it's kind of funny, and I've gotten lucky. I've, done some of the PMTT. I've come to Minnesota and fished a lot. I fished some other waters. Cave Run. I think my first ever casting fish was Cave Run with a guy out there with Muskies Inc. But it's funny, is a lot of guys are like, how do you pick a spot on Lake St. Clair? Like, we take off in the boat and, we go for 30 minutes or 35 minutes to the other side of the lake. And they're like, why did you decide to stop here? There's nothing. There's nothing. And I say the same thing to some of the other guys. I'm like, when I go to Wisconsin, I see rocks and I see, some points. They got weeds. And I'm like, oh my God, how do you guys know?
Sure.
How do you do it? You fish, you put some time in. But one of the biggest things, St. Clair is a bowl. You got shallow, you got deep. For me, honestly, and I was talking with one of my other charter buddies. We were talking about this actually yesterday, you know what I mean? And he's kind of converting a little bit from from the big boat trolling, and he wants to get into some casting and stuff like that. And, you know, and it's funny when you're on the big boat, you pay attention to bait fish. And back then, like I said, we didn't have the electronics, so you weren't focused on a lot. You kind of focused on watercolor and you focused on bait. And then, you know, usually the muskies showed up. For me now, I pay a lot more attention to my electronics more than anything. So if we're ripping across the lake and I see some bait and slow down, the watercolor looks good, you know, or I see a lot of weeds, you know, especially when you're getting to the end of June and getting into 4th of July and those weeds are really starting to get up, like we've seen at Stony and stuff like that.
Sure.
That's when you start paying attention to where those weed edges are. And, you know, and for us still on St. Clair, I do the drift, you know, I mean, unless it's flat calm that we use a trolling motor, but
Right.
for me, the biggest thing is, I mean, on St. Clair, if you find bait, you find some weeds, some current even, Lake St. Clair is loaded. There's muskie. There's really probably no bad spot that you could honestly stop and cast a bait.
Right.
And if you stay there long enough, you know what I mean? I mean, there's just some things that are going to speed up and maybe at the right places at certain times, you know, you're going to do better, like the middle of the lake. But, you know, like this year, for whatever reason, evenings in mid lake wasn't what mornings were, you know, so just putting some time in and knowing when to
be somewhere.
When to be and when to move. And, you know, like I think even with Lee, we had that great morning and then they just disappeared on us, but we had to take a move to, you know, quite a big move to get something to happen.
Yeah. And then later in the day, it came down to finally getting some wind to come along and kick up again. I know it was real flat the one part of the one day.
Oh, that was hot, man. Thank God for that umbrella you had.
Yeah, Barb brings the umbrella. It's like I was hiding under it and drinking Gatorade.
Oh, that was
the
hot.
bigger the lake, the hotter it gets, it seems like out there.
I think I passed out, slept there for about 20 minutes at it. Oh, that was hot, you know, but
yeah, but no, the wind currents, I mean, for sure, that got the fish going again, and that seems like 9 times out of 10, what we're concentrating on out there seems to be some sort of wind-induced current where you've got a color change, and you'll notice these foam lines where you get the bubble action will all kind of concentrate on those seams. And just like out in the ocean where you get, you know, the ocean weeds floating out there, and there's, you know, mahis hanging on a line as well. It seems like really similar.
Yeah, Oceans of Musky, right?
That's Oceans right, exactly. St. Clair.
One of the most unique places.
It's funny how the wind there, you know, I mean, just watching the graph and having the graph at your feet all the time and really paying attention, you know, in between casts and putting that puzzle together when things change and doing stuff. And then when you start to see the bait and start to see things, and that's one thing I think the electronics today, you know, really help, you know, narrow that down. You know, if you just can't be scared of it, you know, you got to push the buttons and learn how to use it and not make it a set it and forget it kind of thing, you know, use it as a tool, you know.
So for spring of the year, when does it really kind of get going where it's somewhat consistent for you and you're starting to get fish regularly? When is that typically, Mark?
Well, you know, so the Canadian side's the first Saturday in June is when the season opened. Michigan, we've got a weird, you know, different thing. A couple years back, there were some changes made. It used to be the same thing. We patterned each other. Well, now you have December 15th through that first Saturday in June, you have catch and immediate release. And, you know, I mean, you can still fish for them. Most of the guys that I know, the good guides, no, everybody leaves them alone. We got enough walleye and bass, and we got things keeping us busy to get us into June. But this year for me, I kind of changed my tactic a little bit. And I kind of followed the walleye, to be honest with you. You know, I mean, I stuck where the bait was, and kind of just targeted the bigger fish. And we, right out of the rip, man, we had, I got some good clients that fished with me opening weekend, and we had a little debacle, but my first fish of the year was probably pushing 52. I mean, just code. And we hadn't seen a lot of action. Right. And then I think actually, you know, Mike had a couple buddies that, you know, were friends of friends, and we were all kind of working together. And I think they got a 52 or 52 and a half that day, I think, you know, so we were kind of, you know, right out of the rip on some pretty big fish versus maybe kind of going to some regular places, trying to find some little bit of weeds or trying to find some different water temps and things. But
yeah, knowing where the food is.
What kind of water were those fish in? Or would you rather not say?
Yeah,
yeah,
we don't have to say
that
anything.
one, I mean, you know, I'm kind of curious.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
No.
We get it.
You know,
that's the beautiful thing about doing that walleye guiding. I'm sure in the spring you're probably marking muskies with them, I would imagine.
Catching them too. Usually,
yeah.
you can tell when we're, you know, because I'll do the Detroit River late March till about mid-May, and then I just, as much as I love jigging and I love doing it, the crowds and the people, I'm kind of burned out. And being a troller, I love running crankbaits for walleyes. I call it bobber fishing for adults because it's fun. You know, you got 2-3 of them going at a time with net, and it's just fun, you know. And honestly, for me, that's when I'm kind of really paying close attention and see how many bandits and flicker minnows I'm losing because the see that board take off, like, you grab it, she gone. You know, that was a musky, you know. So that's kind of honestly the kind of builds me into into kind of what to do, you know, kicking it off in June.
Sure. No, that makes total sense.
You know, and then from there, as the weeds start to populate, you know, but usually Father's Day, if we get some warm June days, you know, by the time you kick into, you know, June and third week of June, I mean, you're on, you know, the fish on the river, everything's kind of in full swing. Water temps are up, everything's good, you know, everything's firing on all 8 cylinders. So
what was the worst?
What type?
Or no, you go
I was
ahead,
going to say,
that was a dumb question.
Well,
no,
there's no dumb question.
No, I know.
I was just going to ask what type of baits you were using in that June time frame.
Well, I'm a Medusa guy. I'm a chaos guy. I mean, I love their stuff, you know, and everything that they do for me, and I can't thank them enough. So I'm just biased. I always start with that stuff, you know. So the funny thing is this year, so, you know, I mean, I love a Poseidon, you know. I mean, you just can't do wrong with a Poseidon. And this year, for whatever reason, it wasn't
just not the program.
It was not the program. They wouldn't touch it. I mean, normally, you know, especially with new guys and trying to get them doing the figure 8, you know, swim baits is such an effective bait. I can get them some action. I can get them doing the right things, you know. But this year, I mean, I felt bad because it just wasn't. But Deuces and, you know, your pounders and big stuff were really, bucktails too this year was really a great bucktail. You know, I mean, in the last couple of years, I've really gotten a good blade bite, you know. I've stuck with them a little bit more in the right times, and even in the times I thought maybe it wasn't a blade, it turned out it wasn't, you know.
Sure.
But
nothing more exciting than a St. Clair follow on a bucktail. So freaking weird. Those fish are just some of the most just coolest animals that you can fish for. They don't act like a northern Wisconsin muskie, I'll tell you that much.
No.
They're an ocean fish. I mean, they got to swim fast.
Oh, yeah.
And they're built for speed. It's a totally different animal. If you guys have not done it, do it. You know, these fish are just getting bigger every year, it seems like.
Yeah. No, we got some good fish, and this year with some good numbers, it was finally nice to see a couple guys got some big, you know, got some double nickels, and got some good fish, you know.
It's great to see. Doesn't matter if you're catching them or whatever. Just knowing that there's some upper end fish in there, just crazy. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting.
If we could get a few more changes on the lake, we could. I think honestly, we're on the cusp of truly Lake St. Clair could be really phenomenal, you know. And I don't want to cause a bunch of
get into the politics of
the
tournaments
and the drama and all that stuff, you know.
Fish transportation.
Yeah, I don't know. And I'm not totally dogging on them because I was once that guy. You know what I mean? I've done it. I'm not a hypocrite. You know what I mean? But I can change. And I remember some early on, you know, some of the Muskies Inc. folks, and I was very big when we, me and quite a few guys got the Lake St. Clair Chapter 58. We brought Muskies Inc. to Lake St. Clair. I was on the board for a little bit, you know, and Muskies Inc. and really got to learn muskie. So that changed me, you know, because it's like St. Clair is a small piece. It's a phenomenal place. It does some very unique things, but muskie everywhere else is, you know, it's something you got to build, you know, and, you know, with, you know, some of the phenomenal waters you guys have fished and things you've done and see things change. But I wish we could get, you know, just have the conversation with some of these folks and get them to understand that, it's, weight is nothing. I mean, weight doesn't really mean anything. I mean, it could not eat a sucker and it could be a difference of a 36 to a 33 pounder. You know what I mean? It
It's a
doesn't
valid
mean,
point. Yeah.
and if I think honestly, because the fish that they're running are the bigger ones and not the little ones, and the stress, and then you're doing it in July and August, and man, you handle them wrong. We're two extra pitchers, and you got to spend 45 minutes on the side of the boat really getting that fish to take. So
yeah, you've seen it.
and I just think we're on the cusp of really could do some mad. Lake St. Clair could be, I know guys go to other bodies of water for that absolute monster, but I'm not saying that they're not here. There's some pretty phenomenal fish here, but I think
I've seen one.
yeah, that one you got was a stud.
I don't know where he came from, but
I want to see more of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just want to do whatever, and
Whatever
it's
you
the same
can.
thing. Same thing like hunting here in Michigan. They're allowed to kill 2 bucks, so we don't see big bucks. I mean, some guys do.
Brown it's down.
For the most part, the average deer hunter, so if you stop taking them, what's going to happen? You're going to grow some bigger bucks,
Right.
and it just depends on what your game plan is. So,
Yep.
like I said, I don't want to turn it into a bashing by any means, because
No.
I mean, I've got buddies that do it, and they know where I stand, and we have that conversation. But hopefully,
let's face it, those big giant muskies, those are great grandma muskies. They are delicate fish.
And I put it in a conversation because I still do some big boat trolling. I do a couple tournaments with my buddies, and every now and again, even though it's still not my favorite thing to do. I mean, but I still like to relax and kick back, run a bunch of rods, and just and have that fun. But and the thing that we were talking about, we had my one of my best friends kid fishing with us. He did his first tournament with us, and he's like 15, going on, and he's been fishing with us since he was in diapers,
Sure.
And thinking about it, some of these small fish, and that's the thing that scares me, is we haven't seen these 30-inch fish, like these little whippersnappers. I mean, I honestly had one day trolling where we had over 50 fish in 8 hours, and we netted probably 3 of them because they were so small. And honestly, we're not seeing that, so that scares me. And we had the conversation on the boat, and I'm like, man, these fish that we're seeing, I mean, I was his age when that fish, you know what I mean? It's taken that long, so the small fish that we just threw back, maybe a 35-incher, I'm probably not going to be here when that fish gets 50. I'm not going to be casting a pounder or a husky doosa, for sure.
Right.
And that's the mindset, people got to realize, getting them to that caliber is just
special animal.
Absolutely,
I mean, geez, that 50, it was 57 inches. What was that, 3 years ago that was caught out of there? That thing looked healthy still.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is so amazing.
Right. What can they get to?
What can they get to without, what actually lives in there?
And that's the thing is, I mean, that fish, I mean, and there's not been anything to touch that fish and, since that fish, you know what I mean? And I want to see more guys get close to it. I mean, I caught my 56, or God, that was 2009, I think, 10, somewhere in there. And I mean, I've caught a couple 54, not seeing, I want to see those big fish. I mean, I've gotten a couple nice upper fish, but not like, I mean, for the amount of fish that's in Lake St. Clair, you know what I mean? There should be,
consistent 55s, you would think.
And this year was good because the year before was a lot of 47, 48, 49-inch fish. A lot of fish we pull out of the net and put them on the board like, oh, that was close, And then this year, we seem to just inch over, and we had some, so that them fish grew, right?
Right.
And we also had a lot of fish in that 45 to 47-inch class that are backing it up. So but where's that little class? I think there's going to be a hump there coming there. I think we're going to go, and then there's going to be a downturn because my gut tells me I may not know nothing. I know nothing about nothing.
Or you're just on big fish spots, Mark. Come on, let's face it.
Right.
Us part-time guys, we don't get out there enough. We don't know nothing.
Yeah, maybe all the runts, they're living up in the loon somewhere.
Yeah, you don't know. Really. I mean, who knows? They're not ready for the mid-lake,
Right.
And that's the other conversation. You think about, we were 3.5 feet above where we normally are, and think about how big Lake St. Clair is, and how much water
it got.
that grew. So the other thing we had a conversation was, did these fish go somewhere else? Did they able to get, and now they just haven't come back? Maybe, so this year I'm really excited to see,
Yeah.
now that the water levels have come back to statistically where they should
More
be.
normal.
Yep.
I mean,
Now with a bunch of tigers now.
exactly.
That's really
So
interesting.
check this fact out. So
Tigers.
27 fish over 50 this year. And statistically, I look back at all my books, and normally we run between 10 and 15 tigers a year. We didn't catch one, my boat anyway, not one tiger.
Weird. No
Weird.
kidding.
Absolutely. And I don't know, I always go back to I've got date books going back, 15 years,
Sure.
water temps and sun, and tried as much information. And, I'm in the process of putting some stuff in actually in an Excel sheet. So
Sure.
I don't have to thumb through catalog,
Yeah.
calendars anymore, but, and kind of look at it and see if it paints a bigger picture. But history does, so it's kind of neat.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's a better place other than, reservoir fisheries and, out west or whatever in Utah and Colorado to actually catch, a tiger muskie that's over 48 inches.
Right.
Than Lake St Clair right now. So, I mean, it is cool. But, yeah, it's weird, though. I thought you got one or a couple this year, but I guess it didn't seem.
I think we got one on trolling on the
Sure.
big boat, but I like on my boat, as far as, and I don't like add those numbers in, a lot of times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but for on the Ranger, I don't think we put a tiger in the boat,
Interesting. I guess just
which I wasn't complaining. Everybody, we were doing pretty good with good sized fish.
Yeah.
I let that roll,
Yep.
Yeah, because we even had, I think, we had quite a few days with multiples. I think we had one day we could have done 4 50s casting, and
Wow.
we had a 48 in the net, and I couldn't get the fish. I'm trying. He hit relatively close to the boat. He did everything he could to keep it pinned and keep it on and thumbing it and doing everything. And then when I finally said, heck with it. I'm not going to get this out. I'm just going to grab it. It got caught in my live scope pole, and it just, the shit show that
disaster.
transpired.
Well, when that feeding window's on St. Clair, it's on.
And the best thing about that whole trip was, so we had caught one. That would have been our second. The client lost his mind. He's just, he can't even talk. I literally had a whack, whack, whack. Like, they're biting, cat. He made 3 casts and put a 51 in the boat.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And it's just like, it was like, wow.
Yeah, what's happening?
But,
amazing.
Like, wow.
That's awesome.
When was that, Mark?
That was July. That was like middle July. That was
Sure.
kind of just going into summer, kind of, like I said, it was weird this year. We had big fish right out of the rip. Normally for me, statistically, we catch fish, we do good, but the big fish don't come till, for me, really, till we get into
The heat.
mid-July, going into Labor Day, as far as the summer big fish. But this year we were just right out of the rip,
That's cool. That is awesome.
So summertime, Lake St Clair Muskies, that's probably your favorite time because it's the most reliable fish.
All my big fish have always come the first 2 weeks of August. Like, and when I look back, it's just, I've caught a lot of fish in other times, in June, July.
Yep.
But when you look at the windows of the numbers, when you start really, statistically, even trolling was always, you had that kickoff. We always did that tournament the 3rd week of July, and we always did the other tournament the 2nd. So we always spent a ton of time in there. But that's usually when, the first tournament would kick off. Some, the big fish, mid-lake would start to heat up, and then, going on, and then it rolled until the temperature started to drop until we got into Labor Day and beyond, But yeah.
So tell the folks at home, there's, a lot of people obviously listening and watching that have not been to St. Clair, which get out there. What are you doing? You got to go try it.
Yeah.
At any rate.
I mean, it's a bucket fish place. I mean, definitely. I mean, especially if if you're new and you don't be afraid, come on out, I mean, and I know it's a lot of water, and the one thing that I try to pride myself on is growing the sport. You come out and fish with me. There's nothing you can't ask me. There's nothing I won't tell you if you ask it. You know what I mean? And I'll try to help everybody out as much. Because I mean, Muskie's a small market. You know, I want to see this sport grow and get bigger and bigger, and it has. You know, I mean, look at St. Clair now. I mean, look how many people you go out there. Everybody wants to cast. Nobody really. I mean, there's still the guys that like
Yeah.
the big boat patrol. You know,
Yep.
but the casting is definitely it's on here. You know,
Boom.
everybody wants
Yep.
to cast.
So the one thing I always find interesting about there is how much the fish like the lures, the baits, high in the water column. I think that's the most fascinating thing to me when fishing out there. I know when we were out there last summer, Mark, we were doing good on the double 910 Boilermaker.
I think it's fire.
Those fish, we're in like 15 to 20 plus feet of water, and that bait is literally an inch under the surface. I'm basically bulging it, and they're just smacking it right on top of the water. And I know when you guys like to work Medusas, that Medusa is often in that top, 3 feet of the water column, regardless of how deep a water you're in. I think that's really interesting, and I think a lot of people may not understand that out there.
Well, you think about it, and one of the things I comment to guys, and it's funny when you get guys in the boat, and you kind of give them, what works for me. I'm kind of giving them tips. I kind of like this cadence, and everybody kind of has a little different cadence. I mean, like Robbie's got a very unique cadence, and I've sometimes when he's fishing with us and he's hot, everybody tries to change and do that. But one thing I notice a lot of times is, especially we're in that deep water, people just automatically think they have to fish them on the bottom. And you know what I mean? And you don't, you think about it. And the one comment I always make to my clients is I'm like, hey guys, you're right there on the bow. I'm right here. That's the distance from the bottom of the lake to the top. It's not that far.
It's 3 fish lengths.
Right. And if you think that muskie can, I mean, depending on the watercolor and the bait. So, I mean, if he's up 3 feet chasing the fish and you start seeing them rise, I mean, why would you know what I mean? And I think that's some of the problems. I think, guys, it's just, we do it and we don't even know we're doing it, and and there's times to fish them low and then there's times to fish them high, but when they're up and you're in a spot and they're active and they're there, you know what I mean? So get them up, and then nothing works better than a Medusa,
I don't know how many times, you throw out and it's the first 3 cranks of the reel. You've got the fish on. Your bait hasn't went anywhere down in the water column.
And I laugh when I first started casting. That was one of the things, man. Ducci used to make fun of me so bad because I'd set the hook, and to me, I didn't know if the bait was fouled up. You know what I mean?
Sure.
In my mind, I'm like, that bait just splashed the water. How can that fish be on that thing that fast? And you didn't hit him in the head. He had to. It has made a splash, it charged, it smoked it, and you're up trying to figure out what's going on. He's like, why didn't you yell you had a fish? I didn't know I had a fish. I thought maybe it was a dog ball. And I didn't want to be you laughing at me because, I told you to get the net for a dog ball.
Right. That's awesome.
Good times.
Yeah. I know that was the case when we were out there. Like, all the fish I had on the Boilermaker were, boom, way up high. Yeah. That top 6 inches of the water column. We've had some surface bait action out there at times. It's not good all the time, but, and then, like, it seemed like when the windows of the activity would kind of cease and get a little slower and the follows would get a little slower. I know back when we were using the trilogy, Robbie, you were kind of counting that thing down and letting it get a little further down.
When it was slow.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and I can't wait to get the Ninja, because that thing's going to crush it on St. Clair. You know what I mean? I'm glad. We talked about this, and when you were, somebody needed to do it. I mean, it's unfortunate with the trilogy, but, and that, I think you did a nice job on that, and that's going to do it. And that's the thing. When you can slow roll that thing and let it do different things, God, that's just money,
Yeah, when they're not firing, doing something a little bit different is, not. Or, I mean, you're always fishing with multiple people in the boat, so, I mean, that's a nice thing with, guiding and whatnot. You can kind of figure out what's kind of happening during the day.
And for me, when I really kind of fell in love with the trilogy, and it was, bucktails are work. You've got 2 sides of the coin where people say, if you're not struggling to pull that bucktail and you're not pulling it fast enough, and then you got, you use some of the slower gear ratios, so you're not beating yourself up, and so you got both sides of it. And the nice thing with the trilogy was a little easier to pull, But you know, you get that fish to come in, and especially with new guys and bucktails, and you're fishing, you know how weedy we get, you know, and you try to bring it around and hang it, and they stall the blades, and it's game over. You know, at least with something like that, it's you don't. I think it gives you a little bit of an advantage. You know, you can, you know, especially in the figure eight, if you're not strong, I think you have a better, you know,
chance.
Chance, you know, and not losing, you know, maybe a 1 fish day or 2 fish day versus a no fish day. So. You know,
the other bait that seemed to shine when those fish would kind of get a little slower or not as willing to chase was the Poseidon. I know, you know, where Robbie and I came from fishing that bait was typically getting the thing down deeper and a lot more slower, steady cadence than what you guys typically do on Lake St. Clair. And there were times when Robbie and I were getting all the bites on the Poseidon because we got that thing down 6-7 feet or so. And then, you know, during the times that they weren't aggressively chasing, you know. Yeah. You know, I mean, that was fun.
That's what's so fun about fishing in different areas and how we're all so different. That is
we're all
such a beautiful thing. Yeah.
And that's one thing I'll tell you with the live scope that's really, I think, has helped me. You know, I mean, I know there's pros and cons. People, you know, there's that debate with it. But for me, really watching what my clients are doing, watching and seeing what that bait, where that bait is, you know what I mean? And especially if I got a guy that, or a girl that, you know, maybe having a little different, and I want that bait to be higher, but they're having difficulty. Now I can change the tackle to kind of compensate. Now I can make sure, but I can see that. So a lot of times for me, that's what I'm paying attention. Or if I can see maybe a fish lock on, you know, hey, you got something, you pick it up, you know what I mean? And, you know, help you out too, you know, and I think for somebody that's starting out, you know, that's, you know, it's not a save all. I mean, some guys think, oh God, they just jump in the boat, you know, and you know, we put it in the water. I don't know how many times, man, I wait, they haven't jumped in the boat yet, you know, but it's just another tool to help you, you know, and if you're learning, it's something that, you know, if you want that bait, because what we think that bait does sometimes isn't what that bait does.
Right.
Sure.
You know.
And a lot of it even has to do with how fast you're drifting towards your bait and the currents and everything.
Yeah, and I've used it quite a bit with walleye and that too, you know, paying attention, you know, to what some of the cranks do and stuff like that. Really, it's amazing, you know what I mean?
You know exactly what your depth curve is with that thing, I'm sure. Yeah, that's cool.
So your favorite summertime St. Clair tactic, lure to use out there, what?
If I had anything, would be, you know, I mean, my favorite time, if you put it all into perspective, I would say first 2 weeks of August, Medusa or big rubber, husky or a bucktail, mid-lake, man, you know, get out there early, get out there before everybody else when it's a little dark, you know, it's, you know, how you know me, I'm usually the first one at the ramp. Get out, get it, you know, and
Mark's knocking on the door. Get up.
He's a good alarm clock.
Yes.
I don't think I ever get. That's probably the fastest I get ready in the morning is when I got Mark knocking on the door. It's like, oh crap.
Okay, time to go.
Time to roll.
Yeah.
Because they're probably biting. They're always biting as soon as you get out there. It seems like. Yeah.
You know, and this year was even like for me, like the mornings were money. You know.
Sure.
You know, it was. You know,
don't miss it.
You know, it's like, so you just get charged, you know. The tough thing is, you know, programming yourself to go to bed early all summer long. You know, you want to have a bonfire, play some cornhole, or do something, stay up, have a few pops, and nope, gotta go to bed.
Yeah.
Okay,
I got a question. Oh yeah,
go ahead.
I got a question, Mark. What's you know, St. Clair is like one of the, you know, biggest musky lakes you can fish. What's one of your craziest storm kind of like, oh crap moments you've had in the boat? I mean, you've have how many years on this lake? There's got to be one event that was like, oh my goodness, this is bad.
Well, I can tell you, I can tell you two, you know. And what's the biggest wave you think Lake St. Clair would ever produce?
I don't know. I mean, it's shallow water.
I've seen, no doubt, 7-footer.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe a couple in there, you know, because like a lot of times when we would do those midsummer tournaments, you know, you're out there 5 o'clock in the morning, you're not coming. Some of them used to even go around the clock, if I remember. Like, so we'd fish till 11, you know, and then 2 hours of sleep and go back out there. But in that summer with that heat, you always get those pop-up storms. And so many times my wife called me, oh my God, and you can always see it on St. Clair. You can see the storms coming and it's good and it's bad, right? You see the storm, and usually a lot of times it'll bounce, it'll go south or it'll go north, and you're like, cool. But usually when they don't do that and you're in the doozy of it, you're usually in for a good time. But there was one of the years, like probably after, I think it was the year after the big fish, maybe 8 or 9, my wife was like, I want to do one of these tournaments with you. It looks like fun. You guys just get drunk and have a good time. Well, baby, come on, and we had a good team. And like, we literally, I think from like 9 o'clock on, we had a good window. We were catching, the tunes are jamming. We were having fun, and we could see the storm kicking up. And I was radioing one of my buddies because he had radar and he was kind of keeping in tune, and all of a sudden we're kind of, it get dark and we're looking and we're all on the side of the boat like Forrest Gump going, what is that? And it was like 60-mile-an-hour winds coming at us. We're like, what is that? And it was just the white water coming at us.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, man, my buddy didn't call me. Well, his big Tierra was flipped around. The wind had caught him and flipped him around, and he had his planer boards into props and lures. He didn't get a hold of me because it was a fire drill. Yeah. But yeah, we got 12 rods out, and all of a sudden we're in, we went into some big waves, and my 30-foot boat, literally we'd go up a wave and come down, and that second wave would roll right over the bow, over the top. Bilge pumps are going. Yeah. And it washed my anchor off the bow, and it was dangling. So now I'm waiting for this anchor to start coming up, and I look for my wife, and I think she's my girlfriend at the time, and I'm like, she's down in the bathroom yakking.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And she's an adrenaline junkie. She skydive, bungee jumps. She does all kinds of things, snowmobiles, loves going 100 miles an hour motorcycle, you know what I mean? And she's down in there yakking. And it was complete chaos, and my buddy's on the bow. He's got the anchor. We got waves coming. I mean, complete. I mean,
just
we're scared, but I mean, you were on point. And luckily, nothing bad had happened.
Major. Just a good story.
Yeah, there's a couple of those, and then I think 2 years ago, or no, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, my buddy Scott. It's kind of funny. He got out of a little boat, went to the big boat, and he's always fishing me on the big boat, and so it's kind of nice. And we got one of the big tournaments. We got caught in it, the same thing. And, I see him at the wheel. I'm like, you want me to drive? And he was, sure enough. And I, jump in there, and we literally just had to pull all the gear and just go with it. And I had the GoPro with me because we were doing some filming, and it just stunk that it didn't do it justice.
Yeah, it never does. Never does.
Literally, and there was a funny thing is we went by it. I mean, it was storming real bad, and we just rode it out. And, and I passed the guy. I can't remember which charter guy it was, but there was a guy in a 621 out there. And I'm thinking, we're in a 31-foot Sea Ray, dealing with these 6-footers. And I'm thinking, man, them guys, that can't be fun.
There's no way. That's dry. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a big lake.
Big water.
You get a couple, it's shallow, so it kicks up. And, we deal with the chop all the time. So it doesn't take long, Next
minutes.
Minutes, right? And next thing you know, you're in some big waves.
Yeah, 7 foot. That was about my guess what that lake could probably do.
Yeah, I've been on Erie and in Lake Michigan with some, a lot bigger than that, salmon fishing or walleye fishing and get caught and stuff. But as far as St. Clair goes,
Yeah.
And the good thing is too with clients and stuff, we're usually most of the guys, I mean, even, all the charter guys, usually most of them are out there when everybody's out there, and everybody's pretty good about that. So if something's kicking up, usually guys are watching out for each other, and that's really nice,
Yep, that's cool.
But at the end of the day, we got to get home,
Yep, it's not worth it.
So moving on to fall St. Clair fishing, let's maybe chat a little about that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, fall fishing is definitely things have changed a little bit, since like when we first fished together, and you guys I think first started coming out here. I mean, man, the bay was just the spot to be. You know, that was always a parking lot out there. There was always 40 boats on a Saturday or Sunday in November, and just been hit or miss. I thought maybe this year, it would pay out, and it did. I think we got 1 or 2 over 50 out of there.
Sure,
but not like the days that we were used to, and even seeing the fish. And you'd get out there, and you'd have a day where you'd finally 5 or 6, moved some fish, really had some good numbers and some good activity. You're like, yeah, it's back, it's here. And then you go out there 2 days and next 2 days and you're like, where did they go?
Sure.
And not
well, maybe
seeing.
It was that high water thing still kind of maybe a factor.
I think so, because there was a couple other spots that, they've kind of gone hand in hand, you know what I mean? That have changed up a little bit here and there, and, it's just,
Going back to the 41 bites weekend we had with you at, that was Labor Day weekend. What,
yeah.
3 years ago?
I think it's longer than that now. I think it's
4 years.
18. No,
18, yeah.
Crap.
2019. Yikes.
Yeah.
2019 probably,
19 was COVID, so it had to be 18, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in my old 620, so yeah.
Yeah,
that's
a long
been a
time
few years
ago.
now.
Jay whiz.
41 musky bites in one weekend casting. That was, if you haven't
and as
seen
much
that
as
video.
I hate that video, because sometimes, you know what I mean? I mean, that, and there was 4 of us fishing in a 620. We were elbow to elbow. Robbie, I think he stood on a Lakewood.
Little Lakewood, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was just crazy. I mean, every minute there was a fish coming here and there and everywhere. And, unfortunately, some of the viewers and stuff, I mean, that doesn't happen often.
Yeah, right. We just magic happened.
And that's the tough thing when you get the new guys and they've seen that video or something, and they think, wow, I'm coming to St. Clair because they're just going to jump in the boat. And,
right. It's still musky fishing.
Still musky fishing. I mean, there are days that when St. Clair opens her magic, it does some things that maybe other bodies of water maybe don't do as often, right? But
right.
You guys have fished it enough to know. I mean, it's still musky fishing. There's no doubt about it. You gotta, capitalize when you can, and
No doubt about that. What a cool place. I can't wait to get back.
I hope you're coming back this year, Roberto. Man, come on.
We gotta schedule something down there. I know you got
let's
some
get
dates.
it on the calendar soon, so we'll just plan around it, and decide when the best time was.
I know that's my favorite time to be there.
I've got some dates hanging there.
Okay,
got your name on there.
Mark, I'm coming. I'm there. I'm there.
Let's do it.
We're definitely coming.
Bring that fancy new Vexus with you.
Might have to. Hate to tow that thing through Chicago, but I've done worse things. So
yeah, I don't think anybody likes to drive through Chicago.
Let alone tow a nice new boat.
The armpit of the Midwest.
Yep.
Yeah, the bad thing, I'm fishing that boat. I'll probably have to have one. That's the only bad thing. I mean, I absolutely love my 621. And I haven't had the opportunity. I've got one client that fishes with me a lot, and he has one, and he'll come fish, and then he fishes a couple days, and we've become pretty good friends. And we keep saying we're going to jump, swap boats, and we don't. And
sure.
Hopefully, I've been dying to, because I've heard nothing but good things. I mean, the Ranger guys building what they build,
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
It'll be fun. I'm curious to see. But so fall tactics. What kind of shifts for you in the fall as opposed to the summer, like technique wise or
speed and cadence? A little bit. I mean, we typically slow things down, and that sometimes can be tough too. Trying to really figure out, how slow is too slow. So I'll give a little something different that we did this year. So my one buddy, John, he fell in love with the Navins.
Sure.
And I know, times that you've come, and I know you're a dive and rise guy, and we've thrown some of your stuff, and they've never, I mean, they look awesome, but St. Clair, it's kind of funny. It's, it's rubber, it's bucktails, it's rubber, what I mean? It's rubber. You don't have to deviate from what works, right?
Mm-hmm.
We did really well on Evans this year.
What size? 10?
12.
The big one.
Fall.
Okay.
Wow.
In the fall.
Cool.
And
how much weight were you putting on them?
Keeping it pretty, going. It was weighted pretty good.
Okay.
And again, and that's where I keep telling my buddy John, I said, and I meant to when we were in Chicago to talk to Leah and you guys about that a little bit more, because
sure.
I meant to tell you that, because I mean, that was, it was one of those things. My buddy John always loves to, he started casting before me. So he and he's fished a lot of good bodies of water. He's fished with some great people. and he's a pretty good guy. He just, kids, things get in the way.
Yep.
And, finally he's getting back into the sport again, and, it's changed a little on him, but he loves going to some of the things. And, and of course, we're always rubber, right? And he puts it on, I kind of,
Right.
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, I see him just hunkered. I feel the boat move because he sets the hook and he putting a 50-incher in, and then,
That's very cool.
I'm like, good God.
So what kind of cadence and depth do you think, would you say, on the bait?
I mean, we were fishing relatively shallow. We were in at, 8 to 10, kind of in the bay. And, I mean, he had it weighted. So, I mean, I'm thinking we were down a few feet. And again, that's the only downfall of the St. Clair and musky fishing. We, there's only so many baits, where, the guys that fish, you guys, you fish a lot of different waters. If you don't have this, you don't got this bait, you don't got a topwater bite, you don't have a flap, you know what I mean? If you don't have those arsenals down, you're missing windows, in St. Clair, we just don't, we're simple, right? And, so that's something I got to figure out, and it's definitely, talking with Vince and stuff like that, with KI, that's definitely going to be, I think it's a game changer. I think it's something I'm missing, or something that's going to do, things change, right?
They are getting smarter. They have to be getting smarter. I mean, they're seeing baits. They're seeing baits now. If there's less fish too, I mean, who knows?
Yeah, and he did really good on that. I mean, I think he, 10 fish or so on that.
He's gonna.
How fast was he kind of fishing it?
Not too bad, I mean, just a good
kind of medium
speed, he wasn't wasn't cranking it by any means, and
is he gonna punch you for telling us this?
Nah, I don't think so. He won't.
Nobody's gonna do it anyway.
No, they're gonna keep throwing rubber.
Not too many people like to punch me, so because they know I punch back. So,
yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? They might talk crap about me, but I'm such a bad person. Sometimes I'm mean. I'm tough to get along with.
So tough to get along with.
But
that's funny.
That's interesting though. That's
cool. But he stocked up at Chicago. I mean, he was. He had him and Vince were talking in colors and a few things because it was a show color that was super hot, and but cool. I'm looking forward. And that's the fun thing about musky, trying new things. I mean, how many times on some of the new baits, that you guys I love. I mean, look at that horseshoe.
Yeah,
look at that day we were out. That thing was money. Nothing else threw anything remotely close to it. Wouldn't
by
touch
far the best action.
Yeah, I mean, and we're on a community spot, so.
Yeah, right. But I mean, we weren't even moving the fish that bait. You know what I mean? So I think absolutely. I think these fish, they see a lot of stuff. I mean, it's popular. And one thing I think, talking with a couple of my, my big boat troller guys, and I noticed, we talk numbers, and we talk the lake and the health, and how you did, and at the end of the season, everybody tells everything, and during the season, you might, not tell too much, and it's a new season. But the one thing I've noticed too is, I think, one of the guys asked me, he's like, how are you, you're getting some pretty good numbers and you're getting some big fish and you're casting. I'm out running 12 rods and I'm not doing what I used to do. What are you doing? And I think too is, some of the areas, I mean, I think where we're casting, we're really work in an area that's holding some fish versus maybe, sometimes trolling, you fish, you get that
going
fish, but then the time you get turned around or you get the back in the groove and come back in the line, you're not hitting the spot the same or as close, or, or they're just, maybe more condensed versus, they're, out and roaming,
You could definitely work a school of fish a lot better casting, where you could stay on that thing.
And how many times, I mean, it's once that window opens up or that spot opens up and it's like, bang, bang, fish, you've seen one, I've seen one, or, a client, what I mean? I got one, I lost one, and it happens, simultaneously, a
lot of times. Yeah.
Like that double we had, God, that couldn't have been more at the same exact second than, I mean, we've all caught them and netted them with fish in there, and that's not a double, but that
was it. Yeah.
That was double as double. Which way do you go with the net?
Which one am I getting first? Yeah, who's bigger? They're about the same.
Pretty cool. Yeah. Amazing. They always have amazing things basically happen with you guys out there. Mark, you've, just been instrumental in teaching us about that body of water and how much fun it can be and how different it is from other places. And, we can't thank you enough for your hospitality. That's been,
you guys, we
us.
always have a good time, and that's, and it was kind of funny, I met you guys through Mike, and, Mike, honestly, he put me under his wing and, got me casting. And, the funny thing about that whole thing, his grandfather, ultimately really kind of got me into the trolling game and taught me how to troll, and that's, was always so cool. And,
That's really
first
cool.
meeting
Yeah.
and then doing tournaments and watching me do good. And, and then with Mike, putting me under his wing and, get me in the game. And then, how we fish, him and I.
It's awesome.
It's
Such a fun time.
That's what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to have fun and laugh and maybe cry. And
yeah. It's all part of it. Absolutely.
But yeah, he's really got me kicked into this illness. I always thank him, I'm like, man, I thought I was
done,
kind of slowed down with this. And now, man, I am worse than I've ever been, man.
That's awesome.
Can't stop buying musky stuff.
Well, that's how it rolls.
Could be worse,
Right. Absolutely.
I think might be a cool video to do maybe next time or something. We could just kind of reminisce on some of the crazy, insane bites we've had with you guys out there.
Yeah.
And we could just kind of talk through the story of what was happening and what the bite was. And, from the doubleheader to
That'd be a fun one.
41 bites to when we decided to bring topwaters out onto Lake St. Clair.
Yeah.
And just things like that. I mean, we could honestly do a whole video just highlighting those days that we've
incredible
had with
moments.
you guys.
Yeah.
We have to get Mike. The kids have been keeping him. He's big into hockey. His son's at that age, and we got to fish. We didn't get to fish as much last year, but that would be good. Get the gang back together and just have some fun. And I'm sure he'll bring his tight shorts and
brave smugglers.
And then and a couple of what's those drinks, those bangs, and he'll be good.
He's ready to rock.
He always picks up wherever he leaves off.
Absolutely.
He doesn't forgetting. We did the Bondi Bash tournament. Me, him, and Malo.
Sure.
And we had just a ball.
I can only imagine. That's awesome.
Cool. I don't know. Anything more you want to add to the conversation? Anything you think?
You know how we go. We can laugh and giggle all. We could keep this going for hours. You know how we do on the boat.
Sure.
Oh
yeah.
But no, it's just.
I think that's good. Yeah, we're at hour 10 or so. So that was awesome.
I miss you guys. Can't wait to fish with you. Always have so much fun. And this weekend coming up for us, I'm actually headed out in the morning to Pennsylvania for the.
Oh, you going?
The Pennsylvania Musky Max. Yeah, nice. I'm gonna work in the chaos booth. Brian's gonna be there. Nate's gonna be there. Vince and Trevor and the crew.
Awesome.
So yeah,
that'll be awesome. That'll be a fun show. Probably busy.
Oh yeah,
that'll be a good one.
Musky Mac. Those guys, it's funny. They come. Some shows, every show's got its own little flavor to it that I've kind of found out, as I do more and more with everybody. But the Musky Max folks, then when they hit the doors, they come to buy. They know what they want and they're grabbing, and it's usually
it's not like they have retail stores over there. So
yeah, I don't think like Wisconsin, you guys have them on every corner, right? Musky shop,
kind of, right?
Just like bars,
right? There's that too.
You think we'd have one here? We're starting to.
That's insane to me. There's not. You guys don't really have much of a retail selection.
Well, we got
there.
something in the works that I want to, offline, we're talking with you guys.
Yeah.
We got a big shop to the north on the river. New guy. He's carrying a lot of musky stuff. Great dude. I met him at one of the fishing shows and we got talking and some things we want to do maybe and
sure,
maybe with help your guys' specialty in the YouTube.
Yeah.
We can like I said, we'll talk offline. Maybe we can do something that'll be kind of special. Maybe when you guys come out, maybe if we can get it all the, the stars and the moons align. But
sure.
Yeah, definitely motivated. Wants to highlight and showcase, some of the musky stuff. Here it's just crazy. Guys don't, the bait shops don't really.
It's a big investment. And how do you decide what to order and what
and online and stuff? It's tough, but. I think honestly, you know, the staples, you know, the guys, if you keep the staples, the stuff that works here, you know, so many times guys come, you know, and fish a day with me and then they plan to fish 2, 3 days, you know, in their boat, you know,
Yeah.
and like, okay, where can I get that 2020? I'm like, well, you can't, you know, or where can you get
Yeah.
that shock? Where can you get
The
that
shock and
color
awe, the
or whatever.
Medusas,
Right,
and
all the
you
fun
know,
stuff.
Poseidons.
No, that'd be great. No, absolutely.
well,
Cool. Well, I think this wraps her up, Mark.
okay,
Thanks,
man.
brother.
Thank
Thanks.
you, man.
That was good. That was fun. Educational. Good stories.
Yeah, good to talk muskies
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
have you guys have good rest of the season. You
Yeah.
can shovel out of that snow.
And I'm
Hopefully
gonna.
when you get back from your vacation, it'll all be gone, huh?
Yeah, probably not. Last year is May 4th for the ice off, so.
May 4th.
Ugh.
I will be in
No
a t-shirt
thanks.
or a hoodie,
Yeah,
hammering walleyes,
So stupid.
not thinking of ice fishing. That's for sure.
Yeah, not good. But guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want to get out with Mark this year, we'll leave all of his information in the description below. Always a good time with them. But if you guys don't watch this on YouTube, you can also find our podcast on Spotify, Apple, and Podbean. So you can check that out there. Listen to it and whatnot if you don't want to just watch the screen. So you can always do that. But I think that's about it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. Really appreciate all your time and investment into us and taking us out there. We've just always had an amazing time with you. For those of you that have not fished St. Clair, this is your man to get out with. So the books fill quick. So make sure you give Mark a little jingle on the social or whatever, and get a couple of days locked in with Mark, because he knows where they live and you're gonna have a great time. That's the guarantee. So. Other than that, looking forward to Minnesota Musky Expo. I'll be out there 10, 11, 12. And Mark, yeah, let's put something in the books. We're going to come out in August and we're going to come beat up on your fish.
I'll see
All
you
right, I'm going to
August
shoot you a
1st.
couple of dates, and you guys give me the thumbs up, and we'll lock it in.
Cool.
All
Awesome.
right.
Appreciate it, Mark.
All right, see you guys.
All right, see ya.